Ben had no allegiance to Charlie Kirk when he was alive. So what is it about Charlie's widow in particular that is inspiring his very public nervous breakdown?
WorldBriefed is your front row seat to what's happening around the world. From real stories on the streets to major political headlines, breaking global events, and the latest in music and celebrity culture, we bring you the news that matters fast, clear, and straight to the point. We cover global news as it happens, viral street moments, cultural trends, or celebrity news-shaping conversations everywhere. WorldBriefed keeps you informed. Our mission is simple: deliver accurate, engaging, and timely news from every corner of the world. No fluff, no bias. Just the headlines, context, and updates you need to stay in the know. Subscribe to WorldBriefed for daily global updates, real stories, and news that connects the streets, the stage, and the world.
Pretty obvious that Ben Shapiro is terrified. You can all see that now that Charlie Kirk is dead. He seems to be taking multiple stages and demanding an allegiance to Erica Kirk. In fact, it almost seems like he's demanding that nobody inquire further about Erica Kirk. And truly, Ben Shapiro, fuck you and the midget horse that you rode in on. You know, Ben Shapiro just keeps calling my name out on stage. He's calling for me, and I'd like to show up for him today. Okay, last night he hit the stage at Turning Point USA's AmFest the other night. And I'd like, first and foremost, just to let you all know, so people notice that he wasn't on the AmFest list for years, and all of a sudden he's back on the speaker list beginning in 2024. I want to let you know how that actually happened. So the story goes, obviously, that in 2024, Ben fired me in March. Well, he would say management fired me. But firing me wasn't enough. He wanted to make sure my reputation and livelihood was also destroyed. Of course, what happened thereafter is Charlie Kirk instantly came out and supported me because we were like brother and sister, always supporting each other publicly. And then I showed you guys a few episodes ago that we found out as I was going to speak in Dallas at their YWLS convention that Ben had sent an intern who was going to ask me a question while I was on stage, but we sort of rumbled this plan. And I called Ben out on stage. Ben did not like that I called him out on stage, so he began working behind the scenes to have Jewish donors start threatening Charlie to make sure that I wasn't invited to speak at year end because I wasn't anti-Semite. This is what Charlie told me. And instead, he wanted to be invited. He was just going to purchase a friendship, right? So he comes at Turning Point USA, and this is what was divulged to me from Andrew Colbett at the time, willing to spend an offensive amount of money to be a part of AmFest. Like I said, that was told to me by Andrew Colbett directly because he wanted to say, look, like, obviously, you know, we are totally, Charlie's 100% on your side. This is like an offensive ad spend. I was like, take his money. I could care less, obviously. And I knew petty behind the scenes behavior because I called him on stage. Okay. So quite literally, this is the definition of buying friends and influence and fame. Now, in case you're listening and thinking, is Ben Shapiro actually capable of that level of pettiness? The story begins in 2023, shortly after October 7th. You know, Ben was sort of having another one of his open nervous breakdowns, and his audience just went kaput. People just stopped watching his podcast because he was screaming at Americans that we needed to prioritize Israel. And people just didn't feel that way. It's not our country. I'm sorry that happened to you, but why do Americans need to be screamed at about what's happening in the Middle East? Anyways, throughout this time, Brian Mast was wearing an IDF uniform in Congress, and he basically said that there's no such thing as an innocent Palestinian life. And when I saw this, as shared by Yashar Ali on X, I responded and I said that genocidal language, no matter who shares it, is always wrong. Genocide is always wrong is what I tweeted, and this caused an emotional breakdown amongst people who support Israel. I thought that was sort of what we all believed in. Genocide is always wrong. For Ben, he then had some private event, probably at another Jewish donor's house, and somebody caught him standing on a table insulting me over my genocide is always wrong tweet.
And then the question is about Candace Owens. I think her behavior during this is disgraceful. Without a doubt. Yeah, I think she's been absolutely disgraceful. I think that her faux sophistication on these particular issues has been ridiculous. It's not faux sophistication, it's ridiculous. Everybody can see the moves that she's making, the things that she's saying, and I find it disreputable.
Disreputable, disgraceful. She works at my company. You can imagine that the internet went crazy because they wanted me to respond to him. I can't believe this. They worked together, they're colleagues. Somehow this gets leaked. And I want to mention, because it's very relevant, that was on the morning of November 14th. I was 6 days away from giving birth. I was very heavily pregnant. I'm about to give birth, I'm being insulted, and they're not getting anything from the Daily Wire. So I am obviously frustrated. I should also tell you, I had no PR at this time. My PR was the internal PR at the Daily Wire. And it was very clear that their focus was on protecting Ben, even though he was the one who insulted me publicly, because I said that genocide is always wrong. That is the genesis of that statement. That's all I said. And truly, Ben Shapiro, fuck you and the midget horse that you rode in on. Sort of say my perspective was an eye for an eye, but my husband, who's a better person than me, instructed me that morning to instead take a deep breath, relax, okay? Don't think about what you're feeling in the moment. Think about how you're gonna feel in the future. And so I tweeted that actually my husband was right. I called for peace. I tweeted, blessed are the peacemakers. And I made the mistake. I guess it was a mistake. But after I tweeted, blessed are the peacemakers, and I'm thinking that I'm gonna be commended when I get back to work. Like, wow, you really took the high road. I ended this biblical passage with Christ is king. Christ is the king. He's the only thing that matters. Obviously, Christ is king. Now, it was just Tucker Carlson's luck that I had been slated to come on his news show the very next day. He had booked me 6 weeks earlier. I got approval from Daily Wire. He booked me for November 15th. So suddenly Ben gets on this table, he insults me, it's trending all over Twitter, and Tucker Carlson is going to be the first person to capture my reaction to it. And when it came time, I kept up with the peacemaker. I decided, I made the decision to just take the high road. I said, you know, I don't want that to negatively impact how people perceive the Daily Wire. There are great people there. I mean, I wouldn't be proud of that, but I'm not taking the bait here. I didn't say anything snipey back at Ben because I didn't want to feed them up. That was my honest perspective. My husband was just right. And also, we're talking about a work colleague, right? Somehow, me taking the high road made him angrier. So here's what he did. Elsewhere in my interview with Tucker, he asks me who I look up to, who I like. And I told Tucker the truth that it was my dream to meet Thomas Sowell. That when I first went into politics, I read a ton of Thomas Sowell books, and I had tried many times to meet him, and obviously he's aging, but I really looked up to Dr. Thomas Sowell. And here's that clip with me and Tucker.
Who do you listen to when you're trying to figure out, I mean, some of the stuff comes at you so fast, and you're talking almost every day, or writing almost every day. Who do you read or listen to try to make sense or bounce ideas off of?
You know,
Who do you
I
trust?
have been obsessed with Thomas Sowell, and everybody knows that. I am pretty much a Thomas Sowell groupie. Everything he writes, I read, and it is because he was a part of my awakening story in the politics and made me focus on the economics, which is to say, block out the noise and pay attention to the economics, go backwards in history to understand where we are. When has this worked? Oh, it's never worked. They're just telling you that it's going to work into the future, and there's no evidence to support that. So Ben saw that. He decided, Thomas Sowell, hey, that's your dream. You love Thomas Sowell. He thought that was an opportunity to get even with me for taking the high road after he insulted me on stage because he's deeply jealous of Tucker Carlson for reasons that I cannot quite understand. Ben had his team reach out and schedule an interview with Thomas Sowell, which they paid for an offensive amount of money, I presume, to effectively purchase a black man who has no idea what's going on. He's very old, in his 90s, to hurt my feelings, okay? Interview with Tucker is on the 15th. I think it premieres on the 16th. And Ben gets Thomas Sowell, who he doesn't care about. I'm working at the Daily Wire at this moment, and I'm about to give birth in 3 days, but this was supposed to be like an F you, Candace, for taking the high road and saying that genocide is always wrong. That is what I mean when I say he is an incredibly petty man, okay? Now, we know how this ends. I then am fired not for what I said, but for what they assumed that I meant, and for trolls that I didn't respond to. And I want to be clear, you can fire whoever you want, you really can if you're a business owner. It's just that this was atypical in the fashion that it was done, right? It wasn't done the way where you just say, okay, get out of here, it's not working. Instead, what they decided to do was humiliate me in front of all of the other employees by, rather than having a conversation, sort of dramatically having me exit after doing my show, not knowing that I was going to be fired. And then they had put together a stage in my studio and put together basically a whole package, almost like a high school play, and conducted what I honestly, when I look back, because it recently leaked what happened at this quote unquote town hall, this is a slave hanging. This is a slave hanging, right? Gather around, everybody else is a slave, and let me tell you how this one messed up. Gather around and watch us whip this person. This is literally how I feel when I watch this, okay? And you'll know what not to do next. And here is a video of the then CEO, Jeremy Boring, which somehow Steven Crowder got a hold of this week, or last week, or whatever. This is just a portion of it. You should watch the entire thing, because it really is something. And ask yourself in your memory, do you ever recall anybody ever being fired where 300 employees, Ben joined electronically, it's up on the screen too, and just enjoyed watching me be humiliated, where 300 employees are invited down and shown a production of what this person did wrong? Okay, well, let's watch a little bit of this video.
Candace made no statement at all in the days after Hamas terrorists raped, murdered, and tortured over 1,000 Israeli civilians, mostly Jews, some Americans, and then they took hundreds more hostages. But then on October 28th of 2023, while anti-Israel protests were raging in London, where Candace, I believe, was at the time, she reposted a video of the protests on X, commenting, quote, "Interesting thing happening here. People are not accepting the media narrative about what's happening in the Middle East, despite the insistence